Welcome back. We are now ready to start session 2 to discuss the importance of investing in care economy to nurture a caring society. We have for this session's moderator, Professor Maria Floro, who is the Professor of Economics at American University and also the co-principal investigator of the 3-year Care Work and the Economy project. Professor Maria Floro, could you please start off the session by giving a brief introduction of your session participants?
Thank you, Joyce. It's a pleasure for me to welcome you all to the second session for today on investing in care economy to nurture a caring society. The 3-panel session presentations will illuminate on the importance of care in policy analysis by demonstrating innovative policy tools that the Care Work and the Economy project has developed. These tools are useful for measuring and valuing the care economy and for incorporating the care sector, paid and unpaid, in policy analysis. It's now my pleasure to introduce our presenters. I'll start with Bongoh Kye, who is an associate professor at Kookmin University. He received his PhD in sociology from the University of California, Los Angeles, and was Frank Rhodes postdoctoral fellow at Cornell University. His research focuses on the intersection between social stratification and demography. Dr. Gretchen Dunhauer is a researcher at the Center on Economics and Demography of Aging at University of California in Berkeley. She's also an adjunct fellow of the East-West Center, University of Hawaii. She received her BA in Economics and Mathematics from Yale University and obtained an MA degree in Statistics and a PhD degree in Demography from University of California at Berkeley. She currently leads the Counting Women's Work Project, which is a global research project that has teams in 60 countries that are tracking how women, men, boys, and girls produce, consume, transfer, and save economic resources, including time, and is now also developing a new tool to track time transfers during the coronavirus pandemic. Professor Jae-Young Yoon is the presenter for the second paper. She's a professor of economics at Chungnam University and associate researcher at the Korea Labor Institute. Dr. Jae-Young Yoon graduated from Seoul National University with an MA in economics and an MA from Iowa Women's University. She later received her doctoral degree in economics at University of Massachusetts in Amherst in the United States. She has been doing research on the labor economy and the family economy from a feminist perspective and has published several articles on caring labor and time use in various journals. Our third paper will be presented jointly by Hans Lofgren and Martin Chichowicz. Dr. Hans Lofgren is a member of the Care Work and the Economy Project community of scholars and was formerly a senior economist at the World Bank. He holds a PhD in economics from the University of Texas at Austin. While at the World Bank, he developed the MAMS, Maquette for Millennium Development Goal Simulations, which is a macroeconomic model for medium and long-run country-level policy analysis. Before joining the World Bank in 2004, Dr. Lofgren is a senior research fellow at the International Food Policy Research Institute, where he developed with Sherman Robinson a CGA model that has been considered the world's most widely used single-country macroeconomic model. Dr. Martin Chichowicz is a professor at Universidad Nacional de La Plata in Argentina and researcher at the University Center for Distributional, Labor, and Social Studies. Dr. Chichowicz holds a PhD degree in economics from Universidad Nacional de La Plata. He specializes in the application of computable general equilibrium models and microsimulations to the assessment of policies and external shocks. We'd like now to introduce our two discussants of the three papers. I'll start with Dr. Joyun Su. Dr. Su is a faculty fellow at American University in Washington, D.C. Her research interests focus on the measurement and valuation issues regarding unpaid family care, time pressure for working families, and building satellite accounts. That adds the value of housework to national accounting system. She received her doctorate in economics from the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. Prior to joining American University, Dr. Su worked at the Oxford University Center for Time Use Research, the American Women's Policy Research Institute, and the American Association for Retired Persons. Last but not least, I'd like to introduce Dr. Sang Ho Nam. He is Emeritus Research Fellow at the Korean Institute for Health and Social Affairs. He earned his MA in economics from State University of New York at Stony Brook and earned his PhD in economics from the University of Washington. He also served as the research director of the Socioeconomic Analysis Division at the Bank of Korea and as research director of the Macroeconomic Analysis Division at the National Assembly of Budget Office. I would like now to start with the presentation on evolving demographic change and care support in Korea and the United States by Bongoh Kye and Gretchen Dunhauer. Professor Kye will present the paper, so please unmute yourself and share your screen with us.
Let me check. Okay, I'm trying. Yeah, okay, here. Okay, can you see my screen? Okay. Thank you, Maria, for the nice introduction. And my name is Bongoh Kye, at Kookmin University. And thank you for having me here to present our work on evolving demographic change and care support in Korea and the United States. This project is led by Dr. Gretchen Donehower and UC Berkeley. And as Maria mentioned, Gretchen is here and will be available to answer your question if you have some more technical issues or the method issues. Let me start. Okay, so before start, we need to ask why we care about the care economy. So let me discuss two relevant issues in Korea. So patriarchal culture and rapid population aging. First, care provision has been treated as a supplementary in Korean society. We have maintained strong gender segregation at home and in the labor market simultaneously. Scholars have characterized the Korean economy as patriarchal, capitalist development, or the militarized modernity to emphasize the male dominant features in public and the private spheres. I think the first session kind of discussed this issue in more detail. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we are realizing that care provision cannot be considered as supplementary anymore, and it is at the center of our social life. Secondly, the rapid population aging changes the care demand structures. The child care demand may be decreasing because of the smaller number of children, but the elderly care demand is increasing because of the changing age structure of population. Given the situation in this study, we try to estimate the care support ratios, which is a simple method to evaluate how demographic changes impact care economies. First, we estimate age profile of care production and consumption side simultaneously. We construct this profile for men and women separately, and if necessary, we may add other dimensions as well. Units of these profiles are time, and we may change this into monetary term if we need to do this and we have enough information. Secondly, we can imagine several scenarios for the future change, population change, care economy change, and the interaction between population change and the care economies. Finally, we can combine age profiles of care production and consumption with population projection estimate to estimate the aggregate care production and consumption and take the ratios of these two. In these studies, we focus on how changes in population will impact care support ratios, but as I mentioned earlier, we can easily accommodate other scenarios if we need. In this study, we use multiple data sources. For the unpaid care work production, we use the Korean and American time use survey. For care work production, we use census microdata for the Korean case and the current population survey for the United States. For the unpaid care consumption, we used the Korean and the American time use survey, like the unpaid care work estimates. This was possible because these two surveys included information about to whom the care was provided. For paid care work consumption, we used multiple sources such as national transfer count and some expenditure surveys. I'm not going to explain the estimation process of the paid care work time in detail, but we may talk about this in the Q&A session. For the population projection, we used UN population projection and the population projection produced by Statistics Korea. Okay, let me show you the key findings from our analysis. This slide shows the age profiles of the unpaid care work production and consumption. The graph in the left side shows the production. We can clearly see that care work production is dependent upon age and sex. Unpaid care work production increased from the early adulthood, like this, from this age group, and stayed high until age 60s, and then declined afterward. We can see that clear gender difference in unpaid care work production. Women spend much more time, like here, than the women, the men, and the gender difference was much larger among the Koreans than the Americans. So solid line is Korean and the dotted line is American. So we can see the larger gender difference among the Koreans. And the graph on the right shows the consumption side. We can see that early childhood is the most expensive period in terms of the unpaid care work. We can also see that Korean elderly use a lot less unpaid care time than the American elderly, like this. This is for the Americans, and these are for the Koreans. And this slide shows the production and consumption of paid non-professional care work. Non-professional care work includes some simple work like housekeeping, things like that. We can clearly see a gendered pattern of paid care work production in both countries, non-professional work, which is similar to the production of unpaid care work. However, age pattern of production is quite different in these two countries. Non-professional paid care work production among the Korean women is concentrated around age 60, like this. while by contrast, American women's age profile was much flatter. We can see here. Again, Korean men barely contributed to the care work product, this type of care work production, non-professional paid care work, like bottom of the graph. Okay? And there was not very, no gender difference in the consumption of the non-professional care work for the both countries. American children seems to using more care time than the Korean children, and we guess that this pattern may be related to the differences in the utilization of babysitting. Finally, for final graph for the age profile for the care production and consumption is the professional paid care work production and consumption. Again, we can clearly see the gender differences in these two countries. Interestingly, professional care work production among Korean women concentrated on the young women, like here. In contrast to the patterns of the non-professional care work production in previous slide. Here, the old women are main providers of the non-professional care work, but the professional care work young women are primary providers. And this shows that care work production among the Koreans are strongly segregated by age and sex. And you can see the patterns of the professional care work consumption is similar in these two countries. This pattern is partly because of a data issue, and we may talk about this in the Q&A session if you have questions about this. Okay, next one is population projection from the UN population prospect. We can see that Korea and the United States are becoming older, or will become older in the next, over the next 30 years period, but the speed of the population aging will be much faster in Korea than the United States because of the rapid fertility decline in the South Korea. And this shows some scenario based Korean statistics Korea's population projection estimates. They produce the population projection for different scenarios depending on the level of fertility. Here we can see that lower fertility will lead to older population structure, like here. So more old people when we assume the low fertility. And this is almost the final result. Here we can see how demographic change affect care support ratios by all the estimates I have presented so far. In this exercise, we assume that age profile of care production and consumption will not change over time, but only age and sex structure changes according to the UN population projections. Bars in this graph are the care support ratios relative to 2020s. If the figures is greater than 1, that means that the care support ratios improved. In other words, care provision relative to care demand increased compared with 2020s. We can see that care support ratios in Korea declined much faster than the United States. Here, so here, the unpaid sector and the non-professional paid care work, and this is paid professional care work. Okay, all these three types of the care work, we can see that Korea will encounter much severe challenges. In particular, declining support ratios of the paid care work is dramatic in Korea. So we can see the rapid decline in care support ratio in Korea for the paid care sectors. This suggests that we will encounter huge lack of paid care provision if we will not dramatically increase production of the paid care work. Okay, this shows that how the different fertility scenarios affect the care support ratios. This graph shows how care support ratio in Korea will depend on different scenarios of the population projection. Interestingly, we can see that assumptions of lower fertility leads to higher care support ratios. This is the case because the childhood is the most expensive in terms of care time, and the lower fertility means fewer children, like here, okay? And this may be counterintuitive because we think that the population aging will increase our burdens of care provision among the elderly. But in fact, this exercise shows that lower fertility may reduce the care support burdens in these time horizons. So this illustrates that the complex interaction between population change or the fertility decline and the care economy, and the perspective should be, the evaluation should be dependent upon the time horizon we have in mind. So our exercise shows that age profiles and the care support ratios are powerful and flexible tool for measuring and understanding care economies. Okay. Let me wrap up my presentation. Our analysis clearly shows Korea will encounter huge deficit for care production, in particular, paid care production. In terms of the unpaid care work production, men's contribution is very low in Korea, and paid care work production is segregated by age, sex, and age, reflecting strong occupational segregation by age and sex. We can also see that implication of low fertility is complex, and depending on the time horizon we have, we use evaluating the impact of demographic change for the care economy. And this is it, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kye, for introducing the care support ratios and demonstrating its use in order to forecast changes on the population and the care economy.